I didn't want to talk about shadows. Over the past few years, I've developed a centralized purpose and goal for what I'd like to do with my channel, namely a defense of the core identity of Assassin's Creed and of the titles that embody that essence. I care about AC 1 through 3, kind of 4, and a tiny bit Unity. Anything else? I genuinely do not care to make choreo content for them anymore, defend them, or use this outlet to speak positively about them. This channel is an Assassin's Creed advocacy channel, using the true Assassin's Creed games to show people what Assassin's Creed really is, why it's great, and what new games in the series should take as their model from which to develop if they want to be worthy of the franchise title they bear. So, in general, I don't care to speak about them when they're just doing their own thing and unapologetically being not Assassin's Creed. Shadows being epic flippy ninja game doesn't actually harm public perception of classic AC in any real way, since it being so evidently different from the experience classic Creed offers means that it's qualitatively separable as a completely distinct style of stealth action game after even 1 minute of critical evaluation. As such, I can basically ignore it. Until the game's marketing starts claiming stuff like this.
Bruh.
When Ubisoft starts telling people that X new Assassin's Creed game is a return to the roots or is going back to basics, this immediately makes a mental association in the minds of those who hear this that X really is like the classic games, and as such, begins to deeply affect the popular perception of what Assassin's Creed was at its inception. If X really is just like the classic games, this makes X the new frame of reference for what constitutes Assassin's Creed's identity as a gameplay experience and as a narrative. This type of rhetoric also actively disincentivizes more casual players from going back to play the older ACs, because if shiny new AC game X is just this 20-year-old game but much bigger and better looking, what reason does one have to go back and play the older one? This is especially bad when new AC game X just absolutely, objectively, with even a slight degree of critical evaluation, is either completely different or vastly inferior to classic AC in all areas to which the similarity or return to the roots is being ascribed. People will either heavily alter or even replace their perception of how the classic games work according to and with how Game X works, which inevitably damages public perception of the games I care about and makes it significantly less likely that an actual return to the roots occurs at any point in the future, since popular opinions holding those games in disesteem inevitably makes it less likely that people ask for mechanics, such as the ones present in those games, to make a comeback. As such, when AC marketing comes out and says stuff like this, I have to talk about it. Now, shadows. There is simply no other way to say it. This claim from Jonathan Dumont that Shadows is coming back to the roots of the parkour and stealth is simply laughable. For starters, Assassin's Creed's stealth experience was originally founded on social stealth, that is, remaining undetected by behaving in a socially acceptable manner. This was accomplished by doing things like blending into crowds or groups of scholars, hiding on benches, avoiding doing parkour or any attention-grabbing actions in the sight of aware enemies, assassinating enemies in manners that don't draw attention, throwing money, using guards' policing behavior to lure them into advantageous locations for kills, or using hireable factions or other NPCs in the world to create distractions that gave the player the opportunity to strike. So, how is it that Shadows goes back to Assassin's Creed's roots of social stealth? It doesn't? Wait, it doesn't have social stealth at all? Not even a little? That is correct. Shadows doesn't have social stealth in any way whatsoever. Thus, any claim that it returns to AC's roots is entirely false, even from a purely conceptual standpoint, not even considering execution, because it is not even remotely trying to provide the same kind of stealth experience given in the classic games. What makes this even more insulting, though, is the fact that Shadow's design philosophy of having two different protagonists with distinct playstyles would be even more greatly amplified if social stealth had been included. It's clear from gameplay footage that Yasuke draws considerable attention from all civilians when he's moving about the world, while Naoe does not, and is thus able to move about without attracting attention. It would therefore be exceedingly natural for Naoe to make use of this anonymity and to blend into her environment, but no, the game simply doesn't care about providing her the ability to do that. What is inarguably Without question, the most insulting and stupid thing about this claim, however, comes into focus when we consider the title of the franchise to whose roots Shadow's creative director is claiming his game returns.
There are rules. We are nothing if we do not abide by the Assassin's Creed.
Oh, sounds pretty important.
3 simple tenets, which you seem to forget. I will remind you.
Huh. Out of curiosity, what was the second one?
The second tenet is that which gives us strength. Hide in plain sight. Let the people mask you such that you become one with the crowd. Do you remember?
Apparently we don't. My face when my Back to the Roots Assassin's Creed game literally prevents me from following the Assassin's Creed. When Origins came out with a different formula, it was very honest about its being different from classic AC games. Odyssey, this studio's last AC outing, was very honest about not being anything like the classic games. While games being released with the Assassin's Creed title despite not really being Assassin's Creed games was still rather unfortunate, at least the main dish of something that happens to not be Assassin's Creed wasn't preceded by an appetizer of gaslighting that the upcoming meal is basically the same as the meal from 2007. Here, we're now claiming something closely approximating that, which is just plainly not true and insulting to anyone who knows better. On the topic of gaslighting, let's turn our attention to the second core gameplay pillar in which a return to the roots is claimed. Several years ago, I made a joke that in order to respond to fans' complaints about the severely lacking parkour in the most recent few entries, Ubisoft would take the RPG parkour system, improve the game feel, and add a flip on every third jump, and that this would largely stop the complaining on the part of disgruntled AC fans. Fast forward to this year with AC Shadows, and that joke has now become reality. The amount of praise that's been given to Shadows' parkour system, even from fans who've played every single mainline AC game, is nothing less than shocking because there is genuinely nothing there to praise. Based on footage published by Ubisoft and reports on the movement mechanics given by players like Robotopolis, there have been absolutely zero substantial improvements to the movement system from what was seen in previous RPG creeds. Legitimately, the only thing that could be driving this are the flips that Naue performs when used in the game's parkour down mechanic, and the fact that Naue is the fastest assassin ever, which, by the way, is really only true when she's sprinting, that is to say, not when she's parkouring across ropes and beams or scaling walls, in which cases she moves at speeds extremely comparable to parkour in Origins and Odyssey. The necessary consequence of this is that the objectively fastest traversal path is always the one that avoids jumping and climbing the most, meaning that any path which involves the player making meaningful gameplay decisions and actually engaging with the game's movement mechanics is always going to be objectively vastly inferior to simply sprinting in a straight line on the ground through the very wide and easily navigable city streets where civilians are no longer obstacles that require decreases in speed and environmental awareness to move around. Having mentioned Origins and Odyssey, Shadow's system matches those games in other ways as well. The level design for parkour is utterly abysmal, there is no manual jumping, and the Jcers are as inconsistent as ever and lose more height than they ever have. As if that weren't enough, Shadows also seems to have removed the ability to swing off beams, bars, or ropes, and seems to have removed catch ledge, which in a way makes sense, considering they've brought back an upgrade that disables all fall damage. There is genuinely nothing worth speaking about here. Parkour in Shadows is not a core gameplay pillar. It is merely a supplement to stealth through its allowing Naue to access the world's verticality, and has nothing to offer the player in terms of meaningful gameplay decisions or any skill ceiling on its own merits. This being the case, it would be absurd to choose to write an article about parkour in Shadows describing it as if it were a gameplay system worth interacting with for its own sake, because there would simply be nothing to write about. What? They did write an article. An article was indeed written, where the roll recovery was given a longer and more thorough treatment than wall ejects, and said wall ejects were listed in the section of new parkour subtleties, with no description of what purpose they serve or when you would want to use them, but hey, at least we do know that they're very cool. The entire piece reads like trying to juice a shriveled up, dehydrated orange. A comparison of the parkour article to any of the others detailing the other gameplay systems makes the vapidity of its content plain as day. Legitimately, the only things that could be drawing praise from fans are the new flips attached to the game's parkour down mechanic. These flips are the entirety of the game's movement system. They are the replacement, or rather, compensation for the system not having actual depth. The saddest part being that the trick seems to have worked on many people, including longtime fans of the series. Which brings us back to this claim. To claim that this movement system, which has absolutely nothing in the way of genuine merit as a standalone gameplay experience, has no ability to provide meaningful risk or reward scenarios, has no depth, has next to no context in which any depth would be useful even if those mechanics were in the game, and in the place of all this, offers floaty looking flips on every descent animation and a faster sprint speed, is somehow going back to the roots of parkour in Assassin's Creed is, regarding the quality and functionality of movement mechanics in the classic games, the textbook definition of gaslighting. This type of claim being perpetuated only hurts the reputation of classic Creed parkour in the public conception, and ensures that all those who call for a return to parkour mechanics like those present in the original entries aren't taken seriously, because Shadow's movement experience becomes the hermeneutic through which the parkour experience in all of Assassin's Creed is observed. That all being said, I would like to examine Dumont's making this claim on a higher level than just the game itself. Obviously, the claim is false, but the real question is whether he knows it's false. The two possibilities here are that he knows it's false and is simply saying that to try to reel fans of the classic games back in for yet another round of disappointment, or that he actually doesn't know it's false and is saying it because he genuinely believes that he and Ubi Quebec have created a game that offers an experience similar enough in style and quality to the first AC games for the phrase "back to the roots" to be properly ascribable. Since the first possibility would entail malice on the part of Dumont, and I don't want to take that position without sufficient evidence, I'll assume that he genuinely believes what he's saying here, which leaves us in a very interesting situation where the creative director of one of the two main studios working on Assassin's Creed games really fails to understand what Assassin's Creed is on even the most fundamental of levels. What's also interesting about this is that this is now the second time in a row where an Assassin's Creed game has been said to go back to the roots, with that sort of phrasing being exceedingly common for AC Mirage in its marketing. One might become curious as to how two games which purportedly go back to the roots could simultaneously be so incredibly different from each other in basically every single capacity. Are the roots which are being spoken of as regards the two games the same roots in the minds of those speaking the words? Are these roots we're speaking of in the room with us right now? All jokes aside, what I think this demonstrates is, at the very least, a gigantic disconnect between how dedicated fans and how the devs understand the series and its identity. We're saying the same words, but they mean completely different things. Fortunately, videos like the one Robotopoulos made are extremely clear about what exactly is wrong with Shadow's movement, and there are more videos like that one going around as the AC Skiller community seems to be expanding its influence and spreading awareness of the declining quality the series has seen with practically each new release. But the overwhelming amount of unhelpful criticism from more casual fans who are mainly interested in parkour looking pretty again, more so than it providing a genuinely engaging gameplay experience on a mechanical level, at least insofar as the way they formulate their requests in their comments when speaking about this, often outweighs the much more helpful critical analysis offered by more knowledgeable players. One can only hope that since these highly dedicated gameplay-focused players are being given early access at increasing rates, their feedback might get through to devs so that the equivocation that occurs when using words like roots might at last be overcome. Until then, Ubisoft, if you are not making Assassin's Creed games anymore, just be honest. I know you can't actually say that you're not making Assassin's Creed games anymore, but you can, at the very least, stop trying to tell players that the games you're making are somehow a return to form and a genuine iteration on the franchise's true identity, when that is clearly not the case. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and as always, thanks for watching.